Hi guys, so here's another quick tutorial because there's always questions coming up about how do you make a car for these events and is it legal, yada yada yada. So we're going to interpret this sheet together. Now an example with the BTC race regulations, the Parallel Touring Championship. I always kind of fictionalize these real life events like the British Touring Championship to like an automation thing, right? Because Berlo is an automation city, which is too crunchy to just place close to Britain. I think it's Helvetia, just kind of like this Northern European kind of thing. So we're gonna do it together, so you gotta get an idea on how this works. We're gonna take a homologation car in this case, because I'm going to have to make a couple of cars for the guest drivers, right? For the guest racing. And that's what we're gonna do. So let me just turn down the volume here real quick. And amazing, the volume is just switched over here. All right. So that's the thing. We're gonna have a look into these rule sets, interpret them together, so you gotta get an idea of what to do and what makes sense. So we are going to have a homologation card that allows us, gives us a little bit more leeway for engine and certain things. And we can increase the facelift all the way to 1997. And yeah, the rest will be okay for this. So it's a 4-door. I think it has an inline 6, I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I watched this. Also, this is such an old car that we might have to tune this a little bit because the way that Automation interprets the engine is different. And obviously, his crank probably didn't have 30% liability warning there. I don't think that happened. Yeah, but you know what? For the sake of this video, we're just going to keep everything original. We're not going to change anything unless something is completely off here. He meets emissions, so we're gonna keep it as is. Okay. So the rules for the Touring Championship first of all allow us to make the car to 1997 facelift. Because it's wait, not the base model. What's going on? How do I make the trim? Okay, there we go. So the trim will be 97. Same goes for the engine. Because in reality, if someone would have had a company car, they would have used this car and they would have set the latest facelift they had available, right? Probably wouldn't have been just 97, maybe it would have been 96, but just for the sake of it, we're gonna put it there. So now we are allowed to put +5 points to the body section of our choice. That means any section here for the body, right? So this is the car trim section, I guess. And that means though we can do drivetrain, wheels, aerodynamics, so on and so on. We are also allowed to make the body lighter by +5 points in chassis section. So that's the first thing we're gonna do. We're going to do +5 points in the chassis section, that's here. So we're going to do +5 points here. This will make the car drastically lighter. If you look here now, the car only weighs 1428. It was way more before. And now we have +5 points that we can still put somewhere else. Slider to lighter is allowed too, so we're definitely going to use that because the car is very heavy. Where is that? Slider to lighter. There we go. Let's put this here. Now, next section tells us remove entertainment, safety, extra seats, setting interior to race. These do not count for your 5 extra points. Moving entertainment, safety, extra seats. We can still change weight bias if the car still weighs 1,200 after this. So let's see. So moving safety, none. We remove the interior to 1 seat, putting this thing to race, and removing the entertainment. Now it should weigh nothing anymore. Let's see. Yeah, you're only weighing 1,100. And now we can have a look into the power index, and we see 1,100 is pretty good. Maybe we can even make, maybe we can't even make 200 horsepower with the minimal engine changes that we can, but probably we can. So let's see, let's aim for this, and let's see if we can shed another 30 kilos of weight. Now we get an idea. I'm probably going to do this for the brakes, making the brakes better anyways. We'll make them lighter as well. So that's kind of the idea. Let's see where we go here. So we don't weigh over 1,200, so we cannot use the weight bias though. Let's see how the weight bias is. Very bad. So there could even be made an argument to keeping the car more heavy, to then allow to have a better weight bias, because then we could have a better weight bias. But you know what? The car should keep some of its characteristics, especially because it's a Might Motors car and because it's a gas car. So I'm not going to change that this time. But you could make an argument of saying, hey, I'll make the car heavier. For example, I'm going to not change the body quality and make this 0, keep the 0. That way the car would definitely be over 1,200 kilos. And that would allow you to then change the weight bias. You would have a heavier car, but maybe you could put the weight bias to 55, 45, making it better in steering and less snappy. Okay, but we don't do that. So drivetrain type, gearbox type must remain, only gearing ratio must be altered. Set gearbox to sequential or manual if automatic before. Differential might freely be changed, so let's do that. So we're gonna keep this because it was automatic. We're allowed to put the sequential. It's rear-wheel drive, which is allowed too. Forward drive also would have been allowed. But sequential 3 is very low, so I think manual 5 will be better. Sequential would have been interesting if you could have chosen more gears, like 5 or something, but this is okay. Okay. Yeah, if we had a Sandbox car, we probably would have had sequential 6, because our tech pool would have been bigger, right? Because tech pool for Sandbox cars is +5 for the base car, but our car is not that, right? So we're gonna have to put it like this. Obviously the gearing is horrible because this will be a BTC championship. That means we're gonna have very narrow roads. It's not gonna be Le Mans where you have a long straight. There's gonna be a lot of corners and turns, so max 260 is realistically where we'll be having our top speed. Yeah, 260 will be like the realistic kind of end. Maybe we can get somewhat of a, no, it doesn't scale. Okay, anyways, let's do it manually. 60 down, 55 down. $50 down. Going 45 down. But yeah, to be honest, we can actually, let's say we put this on 50. And maybe it's a little bit short here. Let's say 35 here. let's see how the gear ratio looks like this. Pretty nice. First and second gear could be a bit closer. To 30. Maybe the first gear a little bit longer. And no, I quite like it like this. It's gonna be realistic. We're allowed to change the differential, but the differential is already pretty good. Maybe the clutched raised one is better. Because we're allowed to freely change that. Not allowed to put any quality points, but this is basically this section now. Now it comes to the tires. Tires are... So we're weighing 1,100. I mean, that's what we're gonna... Now we're too heavy, right? Now we would basically fall into the 1,200 class and would be allowed average tire of 290. If you would weigh higher than 1,200, right? But basically, sorry, forgot what I said. So right now we weigh as if we weigh 1,100, so we only have 275. But we're going to lower the weight actually to 1,100, so we're going to shed some more weight later. But right now we will aim for this 275 average tire width, and we will be going with very soft. Remember to stays unchanged, and we're going to do that step right now. So tire width probably can't be maxed because of reasons. So the average tire width is 275. That would be 550 together. Is pretty close actually. We would just need a little bit more here. We probably have to widen this area here in order to where's the slider for this? There we go, here. But it's still, oh no, now it popped up there, that's very good. So now let's see, we're already understeer, that's what you want in automation. Okay, so let's say 275 is where we are. Where we're allowed to be, I guess. Yeah, so something like this is probably perfect. 275 is average now. This looks pretty good for now. So the fixtures is something we're going to do later. Can't really touch this right now, but it's we're gonna fix it. The buyer will forgive me for this, but I mean, there have been other things we did to them, didn't we? What's this thing here? Why does this not? Maybe if I do this cam here. Wow. There's some weird thing here that I cannot touch. It doesn't let me click it. I don't know what this is. I don't think it will be invisible anyway, so you're just gonna see it normally anyway, so it's gonna be okay. So, next up, suspension. Obviously important setup, but you're not allowed to change, like always, these settings here. You're gonna have to keep this like you had it, which is always cool and interesting, I think, because you obviously choose a very different suspension setup for your comp frauding sedan car that you're selling. And then you're gonna have to make this setup somehow sporty, which is so funny. So we're going to start with actually suspension, and the steering looks like how I like my charts to look, right? It's a little bit in the oversteer part here, but it's okay. Our front tires are a bit thinner than the back ones, so we're gonna already have quite the control over the car. Camber could probably be a little bit decreased. Actually, it stays with a nice camber here. Toe in is probably, yeah, the car doesn't need much, to be honest. The way it looks, it's pretty good right now. We're gonna make it a little bit more stiff. And a little bit lower. Yeah, that's pretty much gonna be it. I like that the rear sway bars are less. It gives me good control of the car usually. And yeah, to be honest, to me it looks pretty nice so far, but we'll see how it drives, of course. Aerodynamics, okay, cooling airflow we don't need for a race car, and changes in aerodynamics are always allowed in these changes. I'm not sure if it was specifically mentioned here, but we don't need these here, brake flow and cooling airflow. Put it like on +5 here. I think I'm gonna put the +5 points. I'm gonna use it +2 here, because aero is quite important. And I will definitely give it some here to, normally you can use this a lot to kind of fix the steering, but the steering looks perfect already. So I'm just gonna max both, just because this will help us to steer better. It doesn't seem to have a front splitter, because front doesn't do anything, just the rear. Okay. Let's see. Body molding is allowed. Suspension only right tire tuning. No ESC, TSC allowed unless the temperature is 10 minutes lower than allowed. Okay, we don't need ESC and TSC. If it has those. Let's see the weight. Yeah, be a bit heavy. So we use 2 points in aero, and we're gonna use 3 points for brakes. And brakes are not defined in this setting. Normally brakes are always changeable, and you can always change them, and you can set into ways and change things. In this case, they are not to be changed. And that gives the car, it's gonna be a little bit too, yeah, you know what, we're gonna get away from the aero. We're gonna give a couple more for the brakes quality. Didn't do that much. Okay, but that's fine. Not all cars can be maxed out. Obviously, I could spend more time on this now and perfect this, but we don't. So let's go to the engine. We weigh 1,150. That puts us in the about 1,100 range. The car should not be more strong than 50% of this, so we are allowed to go to 270-ish, technically. Which is perfect, because 300 horsepower would have been the max anyways. So we can add the rev limiter. We're also allowed to de-stroke the engine, which is something we probably, I mean, we're allowed to de-stroke as long as we don't overhit 2 limit liters. Now this car is freed from this rule because it's a base car of a campaign, and you don't always have a 4-liter, 2-liter engine there. So in order to allow people in, they're allowed to overstep that. So this is already much better now from the crank, even though we have similar power outputs. So compression and cam profile, we're allowed to put 20 points. Okay, balancing mass, we're gonna reduce that. Cam and springs, 30 points each. We're definitely gonna need those. And 56 here. Can just max those out there because I already know it's needed. Compression, 20% allowed technically. Let's see first of all how our power is currently. Let's put the ref limit up. Let's say 8,000. Okay, it breaks. Crank breaks. Crank is crap. But you can destroke it. Okay, maybe we can fix that later somehow. What happens if we increase compression? Since it has a turbo, does it have a turbo? It doesn't have a turbo. Ay. It's still that bad. Yeah. The engine would have needed higher springs. So let's see just how it would look like with higher springs. Yeah, much better in the end there, but we're only allowed to put 56 because the base car was garbage. Well, just not set up for this. So intake is free, very important thing, intake. We can do a lot of this, a lot of things here in the intake area. Intake is free, so we can change this thing here completely. See, now it's breathing. That's very good. So we're definitely going to stick with the waist one. The performance, we have a little bit more torque here, feels like. No, race is better. How is performance here in the end? No, race for sure. So intake, manifold goes with that. We're allowed to increase. ECU tuning is allowed, so we can change this thing. We're allowed to change the fuel. Doesn't do much though. Maybe a bit richer. Oh, doesn't do much. Okay, compression, cam profile, springs and lifters we did, intake it did, exhaust free of change. Hopefully it was restricted there. I think it was. Headers are free of change. This will give us a lot. Especially now that it's breathing better. We're gonna get a lot of power. We're getting close now to the 270 area that we want it to be. Yeah, there we go. So we can also make the bigger. Yeah, and we're pretty close to the limit now that we wanted to reach. Okay. So exhaust we have changed, 0 mufflers. Cat is to be removed too. This will give us perfectly our range that we wanted to hit, 270 horsepower. Can technically even make it a little bit more reliable because it's a bit bad, I guess. Just destroking it more is kind of my go-to thing. Let's say we make it 2.5. 2.6 liters. Get a clear number here. Yeah, then we should probably be good, I guess. Maybe to 7.8 or something. we're pretty maxed out here in these areas. Yeah, I would say that's pretty good. It's a pretty realistic car. 270 is the max for our car. 300 would have been maximally allowed, so we're pretty close to it. Only thing is we are still quite a bit heavy here. We put a couple of points into brakes. I think literally all our points. So let's put these 5 points away from here and we put them actually into the body. That way we should be way lighter. Yeah, and we are perfect. That's still okay. We are actually below the 1100 now, but that's still legal. Like a 2 kilo thing, no one will care. 1098. The weight bias also seems to be a little bit better. So now we're perfectly competitive, and brakes will probably be okay, I hope. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that's not perfect, but that's gonna be fine. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We're gonna have a car that goes around 4.7 with 1100, 460. Perfect. Very good. Tire width is also for 1100, so everything is okay, everything is legal now. Now we'll just put a little bit of a couple of sponsors there, and then we're gonna be good to go, right? So I hope you know what to do, and see you later. So we just pimped this car up. We put a racing, proper tachometer all up in there. We got ourselves some nice motor tuning, everyone's favorite milk and lactose intolerant restaurant. Put a proper spoiler all up in there. To combat the big spoiler, we put 2 front splitters, so we should also have a proper front downforce now. If you click this, probably changes completely. Yep, but quite nicely. It looks promising. So let's check the car, I would say. Let's export this bad boy. Proper moodus banger there. Very nice handling. Doesn't always feel this like and that's actually extremely nice, especially for a real big drive car. Brakes are very good. It's also the stock brakes. But not much need for the VTC pilots and techniques. So since I heard a couple of guys who told me, hey, I can't make the engine for this, it's a 4-cylinder engine. We are having 2 liters here. It's 1999. The emission levels are 1999. It's all green. Okay, we have a little thing here because I clicked something else right now, but I mean, if you have it's all green and you have one little dot yellow, that's okay, right? But you see we're below 1300. We have a reliability well over 60, and the car makes 130 horsepower. And our goal is that this car will make 200 because the car is allowed to have in the race version 50% more than the base That means 130, 65 is half of it, so 195, basically 200 horsepower would be legal. So let's go ahead and clone this engine. So that's the engine, we're gonna clone it. And we're gonna make this our race version. So the rules state for the engine shouldn't be stronger than 50% of base. That means 130, that allows us to bring us to 200 horsepower. Our car will weigh 900 kilos, so that will be perfect. And rev limit increase is allowed, displacement is allowed, compression is allowed, cam profile 30 points, springs and lifter 30 points. Intake is free, exhaust headers free of chains, your mufflers, cat is to be removed, fuel system, and ECU manifold is allowed, timing adjustable. So we can, first of all, we could change this, but this is already set up quite nicely. Technically, we could even had more money by making the base car smaller, right? That would have given us more money and make the car more reliable if we had a smaller bore, for example. And then we could have made even better emissions, obviously, and we could have even made it technically more powerful by increasing the top end. I just made this car in like 5 minutes because someone was complaining that he couldn't make the engine, right? So it's not that hard. I always, when I give out these rules, I make sure it works, okay, guys? So compression, 20 points allowed. Let's up that compression because this is natural aspirated, 20 points. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, because I don't know if I counted correctly. Cam profile, we're gonna need all the max points. That's 30 points. That allows us to go to 65 here. We are allowed to go 30 points up with springs and lifters. It can allow us to go to 80. Gonna need that later because we're gonna increase the rev limit to, let's say, 8,000, and we're gonna take it from there. We're gonna optimize this later. Fuel system, we are allowed to change a lot of things here. A bit more advanced. So now, very important here, intake is free. That means we're allowed to put it to race intake. Already a lot of horsepower here. Manifold size obviously counts with that too, so we can increase that, but it doesn't help us a lot. Let's put this to 50 for now. Then we can go to exhaust, important, cat is to be removed, mufflers are to be removed. That already helps. Exhaust can obviously make it a little bit bigger if you wanted to, but don't need that. Actually, but this is fine. And then headers, exhaust headers are also free of change, so we can make them like this, and we already have too much horsepower. And so much for the guy who said you can't even make an engine that has more than 200 horsepower. Like I'm just on this for like 5 minutes and it's already bigger. So now we have a lot of horsepower. That means we can probably work on just perfecting kind of the wow, it wants to climb and to climb and to climb, huh? Wow, look at this engine, and it just goes and goes and goes. So we could even make 250 horsepower. We can even make the car 4,000 kilos and make it 250. Okay, crank is having problems, but we're allowed to de-stroke the engine a bit. So we could do that, technically, just to get it barely working. Obviously there's other things you could do. You could, yeah, maybe not just put it directly to 10,000, but we can obviously work a little bit with manifold sizing and the fuel and stuff like that. Yeah, but yeah, as you can see, it's possible. Obviously this wouldn't be legal because it's higher than the base power, like 60% of the base power, sorry, 50% of the base power, so we could only run 200. So I'll probably use like the tubular long or something, and make it go up to, let's say, 9,000, maybe 9,500 looks pretty good. So it's pretty nice little bump here. And then just make it like this. Give it a lot of fuel. No, this is not good. Maybe smaller. We have more torque that way. So we have a nice limit here. Nice end where we shift in this area. Lots of power here now. Actually, the car is still way too fast. Let's choke it down by making the exhaust hella big. And yeah, you can just do whatever you want, I guess, at this point. So you can just lower it down now to 200. It's obviously not going to be that complicated. Technically make it super rich or super lean if you wanted to. Make it retarded technically, it'd help. And now you got it. Now we have it at 200. Could easily make it to 50 and you have an engine that works, right? So that's it.